Well, I think a major one is keeping in some sort of sweetener, like the monk fruit sweetener or the stevia or the sugar alcohols, things like that. Usually the coffee and sweeteners go hand in hand. Usually someone's still drinking coffee and well, I don't want to put sugar in it, so I'll put this sweetener in it as well. Or maybe, maybe in whole, heavy cream or something like that. They always ask me, it's like, well, I do have heavy cream in my coffee, is that okay? And I was like, well, heavy cream's fine, coffee's not great, and so that's my main thing is I think it's as important what not to eat as what to eat. You're eating meat, you're getting fat. Those are very important nutrients. Those are vital. You need those. But there are other things that just cause harm, and those things are plants and fungi. And so, they all have different sorts of defense chemicals and different ways and means of protecting themselves, to varying degrees. But, if you're looking for optimal health and you're looking to feel as good as you possibly can, then you do want to sort of eliminate these things down to just meat and water, maybe salt to taste if that's your predilection. But the main thing is to try to eliminate out all of these other things. And I definitely think artificial sweeteners are in that category. I think that specifically for weight loss and fat loss, because I think fat loss is a better way of saying it, because you may I lost 23 pounds just ditching vegetables and increasing the amount of feed. I quintupled my calories and lost 23 pounds by ditching spinach, kale, and broccoli. That's all I was eating: spinach, kale, and broccoli, and like lean meat, and I wasn't eating that much. I rapidly or dramatically increased my calories and the amount of meat I was eating, and just stopped the greens. I lost 23 pounds in 10 days. But then I stayed exactly the same. I didn't change my weight. I weighed the same for months after that, but I just started visibly transforming. I started stacking on muscle and shredding fat. And so I was replacing one tissue with another. So I was getting rid of fat, but I was putting on muscle. It just happened to be exactly equivalent as far as weight was concerned, which was interesting.
Very
And
interesting. I'm sure that everyone wants that. Like that's
yeah,
the ideal, that
yeah.
you just cut out some vegetables. Don't need who wants vegetables? Who in their
No,
right mind is
no,
going to say, I want to eat kale, spinach, all the rest of it? It's conditioned to us to think that's green and that's good. But wouldn't we just love
yeah.
to lose like 23 pounds, jack up and have like beautiful muscle? That's what we all want.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's anyone who wants to eat vegetables that doesn't have Stockholm syndrome, is suffering from some sort of like serious brainwashing and conditioning. But yeah, so sweeteners, I think that those are a major one that inhibit fat loss in particular. And you hit your limbic system, you get this sweet taste, and this can signal your body to think that there's sugar coming. And there's conflicting studies on that, but there are studies showing that you can get rebound hypoglycemia and an insulin spike from eating any sort of sweetener that doesn't have sugar in it. So either way, this isn't something that even existed 50,000 years ago or 100,000 years ago or even 100 years ago in a lot of cases. And so you can't really argue that this is something that we need. This is something essential. This is something that belongs in our foods, in our food, because it didn't exist. When I talk to people and they say, well, I really like carnivore because I felt so good on it, but it really, didn't work out for me. And I asked them what they mean by that. And they say, well, I felt really good. I had great energy, mental clarity was wonderful. And I reversed all my autoimmune issues. Those were all improving. My diabetes was getting better, but I just wasn't really losing weight. So I guess it didn't work for me. It really sucks because I felt so much better in so many other ways. My first thought is, well, it actually sounds like it worked really well for you. Actually, a lot of the times I ask them, okay, what exactly are you eating? And quite often they'll think, well, I'm just eating meat and water. I'm doing carnivore. But it's like, okay, are you only eating meat and only drinking water? There's no sweeteners, no coffee, no this, no that, nothing, nothing, nothing. And quite often they'll say, okay, well, I am having coffee and I'm putting more fruit sweetener in it, and I'm doing this, and I'm doing that. And it's just like, okay, so there's other things, but and very often the people that specifically have problems with their weight and fat loss are still incorporating artificial sweeteners.
And that's the other thing, because you spoke about this person that had healed so many conditions, but obviously she thought that she's not losing weight, so it's not working. But
Yeah.
from a theoretical point of view, your body doesn't want to lose weight if it's inflamed and sick.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people are coming from different, different places, and you can have a lot of hormonal imbalances, especially with leptin, and that is very difficult. If your leptin is raised, especially dramatically raised, which some people are who have been doing a lot of shock diets and eating a lot of carbs and sugar and things like that for years and years and years, their leptin is going to go up. They're going to get leptin insensitivity, leptin resistance, and along with insulin resistance and hyperglycemia, this causes disruption in your body and your metabolism. It's a major signaling molecule for your hormones, for your metabolism, for many other things. And so while that's massively elevated, it's going to be very difficult to lose weight. If your leptin is over like a certain amount, it's usually between like 4 and 6. That's where you want it, ideally. If it goes over 100, which is quite common, I see it quite regularly. People will tell you, like doctors who deal with weight loss medicine or bariatric surgeons, they will tell you that if your leptin's over 100, you cannot lose weight on your own. You will not be able to do it. You have to get surgery. You have to get bariatric surgery, a bypass or a sleeve or something like that. That's not true. I see people routinely go on a carnivore diet and not only lose weight, but drop their leptin. And the weight loss can be slow at first, but again, that's weight loss, not necessarily fat loss and body composition. Their health improves dramatically and their leptin starts to come down. And once their leptin gets down to a more normal level, that's when you start seeing the dramatic drop in adipose tissue and fat loss.
Okay, that's why we love you, because you make it so easy. Can people test their leptin levels?
Yeah. You can. It's a blood test. Yeah, and so your doctor, your family doctor, general practitioner can test that. They may not know what to do with it, but the optimal levels are sort of when you look at reference ranges at the lab, those are just basically like the first 2,000 people that come in that year. That's a reference range, and so that's an average of the population in your area. And this is why two labs in the same town can have different reference ranges, slightly different. That's because they had slightly different people come in. And so that's not really a reference range of optimal health. That's the reference range of the average in your community. And, the average person used to be healthy. Now the average person is sick and metabolically unhealthy. So 90% of Americans have at least one metabolic illness. 70% of Americans are overweight or obese. The rest of the world is not far behind. In fact, some places are far worse than that. And so it's not good to go by those reference ranges necessarily. Some of those reference ranges are way out of whack, like leptin. Generally, they consider leptin reference range is much higher than it should be. Vitamin B12 is another one. A lot of these reference ranges would be like 160 to 620, and that's normal, right? So you get your B12 back, it's like 200. Well, it's sort of low normal, that's okay. Or 300. Oh, okay, no, that's pretty good. Just like middle of the pack. No, actually, that's a deficiency. Anything below 400, you get neurological damage and you get demyelination of your axons. So B12 is vital for the myelination of your nerve cells, your axons. And if that's sort of like the insulation on wires, and it helps with conductivity and with the signal, and it protects it as well. And so if you don't have that proper myelination, you can slow down your signal, the transduction of your signal, and that can be damaged. You can actually get neurological damage. We see this in neurosurgery. We look at MRIs, typically in vegans and vegetarians who are chronically B12 deficient. Even when they supplement, sometimes they don't supplement enough, but they need to supplement. And if you have to supplement, then by definition, your diet is deficient. So clearly a vegetarian vegan diet is deficient because they are losing out on these nutrients. But their spinal cord actually atrophies. And you see this on MRI. Their spinal cords are more thin than just omnivores, than the normal public. There was actually a study in Oxford in 2008 that followed a bunch of people, but they had a vegan cohort, and they followed them after 5 years, and they did MRIs, and they found that their brains actually shrank by over 5% after 5 years. And they thought that this was most likely to do with B12 because they had significantly lower B12. But even in the people that had supplemented B12, they still actually had significant atrophy as well. So it's not just that, but yeah, it definitely makes a difference.
Good. Okay. Next one, carnivore mistake, number 5. What is it?
Yeah, I think another one is some people try to give up. They give up the good for the perfect. I think like if they don't do it perfectly, then they can't do it at all. A lot of people that I've run into, they'll be doing really well, and like a lot of guys I played rugby with, they get on it and they feel like great, and they be eating just meat for like a week or two, and they're like, I've never felt stronger, I've never felt better, recovered so well, like really felt great. But then I went over to my parents' house, and there was a lot of rice and things like that, and they're like, oh, so I had some rice, so I guess I guess it just didn't work for me. And I'm like, well, no, you're not like kicked out of the club, like I don't hate you, I'm not mad at you, you just start up again. You can just start again, and they're actually quite surprised by that. They're like, oh, really? I can just, yeah, of course you can. I mean, it's not ideal, but just slipping up once and just getting back on board is a lot better than never going back on board and just eating like crap every single day. Having that understanding, you don't need to be perfect. We make mistakes and we slip up, and maybe we just want to experiment. We're just like, well, what does this do to me? Is this Dr. Chaffee guy, full of crap? Like, I don't think coffee is that big of a deal. Maybe I'll, go off for a month and maybe I'll have some coffee, see what happens. Go for it. Do try that. But, then if you see that going, actually that does affect me, that does cause that I don't feel as good as I do otherwise, then you just hop back on. Or, you go out and, alcohol is a big one that people slip up on, and maybe they've been carnivore for several months, but then they're like, man, I really miss drinking. I really miss that social aspect. And they go out drinking. Drinking is well known to lower your inhibitions for eating crap food anyway. You eat a lot more high octane garbage, like, processed carbs and sugar anyway. And so now you're more likely to sort of slip off. And then they did that. So they drink alcohol, they go out and then they eat a whole bunch of crap and go like, oh, well, I guess I just can't do it. Well, you can, just get right back on it and just keep going from there. And I think that as long as people, just understand that it's okay to mess up, and it's okay to even experiment, and it's okay to even go off, and drink or have a meal or something like that. If you want to, it's better to do that once every now and then consciously than just give it up and do that every single day. I think that naturally you will find that you just feel so much better that you don't want to do that. They say like, wow, you've been doing this for so many years. Like, you must be so disciplined. How do you say so disciplined? And every single day, like, you're fighting against it. I'm like, this isn't a war. Like, I'm not fighting anything. I'm doing exactly what I want to do, because I have zero interest in eating this crap, because I know what it makes me feel like. And I've done that experiment. I've had things like, okay, well, what does this do to me? And I'm like, I don't like that. I don't want that. I like feeling my best. I like feeling like a superhero 24/7. I would way rather feel like a superhero 24/7 than eat something nummy sometimes or be drunk sometimes. I would way rather feel amazing all the time than have that temporary, satisfaction. And that's what it is. It's the same sort of relationship that we have with drugs and alcohol or smoking. We know it's bad for us, but we do it because we get that short-term reaction that we like and we enjoy. In this case, flavor, just, oh, it tastes good. And we have the social experience or something like that. But we understand it's bad, and yet we do it anyway because we just want that experience. And so, and that's a choice that people can make. But that is what it is. That's the same relationship that we have with drugs. And just like you would say someone who goes out and parties on the weekends and does drugs, and you're like, what are you doing? You're killing yourself. You're wasting your life. Well, to them, they enjoy that and they want to do that. But you're looking at them going, like, why would you? Well, I mean, I'm like another step back going like, why would you eat a cupcake? Like was just like, oh no, it's good, it's not that bad. Well, a guy doing coke is saying it's good and it's not that bad. I mean, I know people that have had troubles with drugs in the past, and they generally say it's not that big a deal. Oh, everyone does it. It's not that big a deal. It's not that bad for you. And it's like it is actually, and no, they don't. You know.
So next mistake, carnivore mistake number 6.
So I think that another one that people make is that not again in keeping the theme of actually not sticking with full blown carnivore, and then incorporating things like fruit and honey, saying, well, these are sort of natural sugars and natural sweeteners. And that's true, but so is sucrose. Sucrose is a natural sweetener. It comes from sugar cane or sugar beets, and it's the same sugar. It's the same glucose. It's the same fructose, and it does the same things in your body. People say, well, honey comes from bees, but that's an animal, but that's not. It's not of the animal. It's not animal tissue. It's just something that a bee has made, and so like your grandmother made vegetable soup, but that's carnivore because an animal made it. Well, no, she just made it. It's not actually animal tissue. So that's the difference. It was funny actually, because it's bee vomit, right? And that's literally what it is. I mean, they're drinking nectar, they're concentrating it, and they're doing different sort of chemical reactions in their body, and then they hork it up and they store it as a long-term food source, and that is literally what it is. And so I was just making that point online one day, and basically saying that cud is the equivalent in cows. That's the cows make it, they chew up the grass, they swallow it down, that sort of gets half digested, they puke it up into their mouth, chew it more, swallow it again. And I'm not going to eat cud either. I don't think that's something that's good for us either. That's food for a cow, and honey is food for a bee, and we're a human. And someone got mad. It's like, oh my God, it's not bee vomit. Like, you need education. And I'm like, well, actually, technically, it actually is bee vomit. That's exactly what it is. And either way, it's not animal tissue. And either way, it has a high concentration of sugar and fructose in particular. And fructose has been shown time and time again, in study after study, to be quite harmful, especially, taken long term. Now, if you're starving, probably the best thing for you is to get that hit of energy. Restores your liver glycogen, muscle glycogen super quick. Like fructose is the quickest at replenishing your glycogen, apart from your fat in your body, because your body constantly replenishes your glycogen. But outside of a starvation survival situation, I don't think that it's optimal. I don't think that it's what you want to do. And Dr. Robert Lustig has shown, actually has performed randomized controlled trials in humans, showing the reversible nature of metabolic disease and metabolic syndrome in adolescents by simply removing fructose or adding fructose. And so these studies actually met the Bradford Hill criteria for causation. So he actually proved causation between fructose and metabolic syndrome. So, I think it's a problem. And, maybe it's better. Maybe there are some things in honey that make it better than, table sugar, undoubtedly. And same with fruit. But that doesn't mean that the sugar acts any differently in your body. It just means that there's other things that mitigate it, that are also of benefit. But that doesn't make the sugar good for you by any stretch of the imagination. And people say fruit, well, that's a part of the plant that the plant wants you to eat. Well, it wants something to eat it, not necessarily you. And so those fruits are generally biologically adapted to, or sort of co-evolved with animals to eat them and then move their fruit and their seed. A lot of the fruits that we eat now are cultivated. They're not a natural plant. They've been bioengineered from intensive breeding or by genetic modification to be way more sweet or changed in some major fashion. These are not normal plants. These are modified by humans. And even then, the majority of fruits are still toxic to humans because they want something to eat a plant, not necessarily us. So in fact, most fruits and berries will still be very poisonous to you. A good example of that is cassowary, where most of these berries and fruits have actually evolved with birds. And so you see this in the tropics, where the cassowary bird, they eat, 150 different kinds of fruit. Every single one will kill you. That's because the plant wants the cassowary bird to eat it. Because if that seed doesn't pass through the gut of a cassowary bird, it won't germinate. And so if anything else eats that fruit, that seed does not turn into a plant. So that is not in that plant's best interest. There's no survival advantage. There's no biological advantage for anything else eating that plant. And that thing is super toxic. And if, to the point that if the cassowary bird leave a territory, all those plants will die out because they have to have the cassowary bird. They will not germinate. They will not turn into a plant unless it goes through the gut of a cassowary bird. And so, yes, the plant wants something to eat the fruit or the berry, but not necessarily you. And either way, it's not a plant, or it is a plant, and it's not meat, and it's not carnivore, and I wouldn't eat it.